What is the true measure of a gift? Is it its size? Or its spirit? Is it found in the name carved in stone? Or in the warmth felt in the soul? This is a story about two kinds of giving and the discovery of what truly matters. The city celebrated Charles Covington. He was a philanthropist, a titan of industry, whose name was a monument. The Covington Museum of Art, the Covington Children's Hospital, the Covington Library. His generosity was a spectacle, always announced with a grand ceremony and a blinding flash of cameras. He gave fortunes, and in return he received immortality, but in a forgotten corner of the city where the shadows of his grand buildings never quite reached. A quiet revolution of hope was starting. It was sparked by a single, anonymous loaf of bread left on a weathered park bench each morning, just as the sun began to rise. Charles first heard about it in a small newspaper article, tucked away in the back pages. The bread angel of Sector 9, they called it. Some anonymous person was leaving a fresh, warm loaf of bread on the same bench every day. For the neighborhood's poor and hungry, it wasn't just food. It was a sign that someone, somewhere, cared. The story followed the bread's journey. An elderly man, his hands trembling, could now use his pension for medicine instead of breakfast. A young, jobless woman, finding the bread on her way to a final, desperate interview, felt a surge of strength she hadn't felt in months. It had become a symbol. Charles scoffed. What was one loaf of bread compared to his multi-million-dollar endowments? It was insignificant, a novelty, but the story lingered in his mind, a splinter he couldn't remove in his world. Generosity was a tool for legacy. A transaction. Why would someone do this without seeking credit, without a plaque, without their name being known? The question began to obsess him. It was a puzzle his wealth and power couldn't immediately solve. He hired the best private investigators in the city. "Find this bread angel," he commanded. "I want to know who they are and what their angle is." The investigators used to tracking complex financial crimes were stumped. There was no money trail, no organization, no boastful social media posts. Their search led them only to a small, humble bakery in the city's oldest district, a place called the Rolling Pin. The report on Charles's desk concluded, the source appears to be a baker named Emily. Motive: unknown. Before the sun would touch the city's skyscrapers, Emily was already awake. Not her small bakery was her sanctuary. The work was simple, honest, and real. Flour, water, salt, patience. As she kneaded the dough, she would look out her small window at the waking city. She saw the tired faces, the hurried steps, the quiet struggles. The extra loaf of bread she baked each morning wasn't a grand gesture. It was just a small, silent conversation with the world she saw. A little bit of warmth to place in the path of the cold. The day Charles Covington arrived, his gleaming black car looked like a spaceship on the bakery's old cobblestone street. His expensive suit was a stark contrast to the simple, flour-dusted charm of the shop. He found Emily pulling a fresh batch of bread from the oven, her movements practiced and peaceful. "You're the one," he said, his voice filling the small space. "You are the bread angel." Emily just smiled faintly and placed the loaves on a cooling rack. "I don't understand," Charles said, his frustration showing. "Why? There's no recognition, no galas, no glory. What do you possibly get out of this?" Emily finally stopped her work and wiped her hands on her apron. She looked at the billionaire, not with awe, but with a gentle, profound clarity. "Mr. Covington," she said, her voice as soft as her flower, "your name on a building. It makes people look up at you." She paused, and her next words struck him to the core. "This bread? It means someone who is looking down in hunger might have a reason to look up at the world instead." Charles stood in the warm, fragrant silence. He felt the true weight of his own name for the first time, not as a symbol of power, but as a barrier. His charity had always been a mirror, reflecting his own greatness back at him. Her kindness was a window, letting light into someone else's world. He left the bakery that day a different man. The headlines about his donations continued, but now a new anonymous fund was quietly established. A fund that didn't build monuments, but bought shoes for children, paid for medicine for the elderly, and ensured that every park bench in the city had a little more hope sitting on it. The lesson: charity that feeds the ego is a transaction. Kindness that feeds the soul is a transformation. A grand gesture that asks for applause can be forgotten, but a small, humble gift, given with love, can ripple through a community forever. This is Narratives of Wisdom, a reminder that the most powerful gifts are often the ones given when no one is watching. So today, we ask you, how will you give? Will it be for the applause or for the quiet impact? What small, anonymous act of kindness can you perform? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the smallest gifts leave the biggest mark on the world.